Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Cat Chats. Today's episode is going to focus more on a current thought process I've been going on and some things I've been thinking about in regards to specifically book one of Shadow and how that might affect things further on with my plans for Shadow and for other writing things. So I started thinking about Shadow, and book one isn't finished, but I wanted to look at the series outline and decide, because you need those threads to go on to the next book to kind of be already in there when you have a big arching plot for the whole thing. So I know where Lavinia started, and I know where I want her to end. And I, in my series outline, have planned for 7 books. And I didn't think really how big those books would be as long as the story was there. I also started thinking about the length that I am comfortable with writing versus what I was trying to do. Because some people have a writing sweet spot of I can write such and such amount of words or so and so chapters, and that is my sweet spot. That is where I can write to. And to do that, I, one, needed to look at what I had already written in the book. 2, I also went and looked at my fan fiction that I've written, because those are things that I have completed. And I realized that besides the one-shots I did, my sweet spot is actually more of a novella length than a 50,000 word novel. Unless I have, in fan fiction, more of a big structure to go with it. And I was like, why am I, obviously I should push myself to expand my abilities, but also, this is my first book. I already know it's not gonna be the best, because A, I can't afford editing. So there's that. And then I was like, why should I push myself too hard to do something I'm not comfortable with when I know that this is a length that I have accomplished, I have achieved, and I don't want to rush the plot. So, also looking back at some of my fanfics and stuff that I've written, I realize once I get to a certain point, I'm just I want to be done with this. I just want it to be over with. And I'm gonna be honest, I somewhat started to feel that with my book. But also at the same time, I realized, no, it's not just that. I was trying to put the ideas or the content, essentially, of 2 books into my book. How I originally outlined Shadow, book 1, At the time when I outlined, it was just called Shadow, because I didn't realize fully that it was going to be 7 books that I want to do. And I outlined it in 2 parts. Both parts are actually technically complete. Like, they could be cut and separated. Because part 1 had an ending, and part 2 had a distinct new beginning and an ending. So I realized, hey, instead of trying to force myself to work to a length that I'm actually fully not comfortable with, I think that's part of why I outlined the book like I did, is so that I could have 2 beginnings, essentially. But now, then I started thinking about it, and I started doing, I'd been working on the edits in the book to post to Novella, and I realized, hey, this is like a really good ending point. So maybe instead of 20-something chapters, this is more of a 10 to 12 chapters book. Like, it's not going to be long, it's a novella length, and I'm okay with that. I think I enjoy reading really short books like that because I can just sit down and read a book in a couple hours. Maybe even 1. I'm one of those people. And yes, I enjoy big, thick books, but also sometimes you just want one of those books that you can just sit there and read in one day. Or read a whole series in a day. I don't know. I've done that too. But sometimes those are the types of thing I like to read. And so it kind of makes sense that those are the type of thing I would like to write, is things that are compacted like that. So I know Shadow Book 1, Whispers of Tomorrow, does definitely need to be... I'm definitely going to add at least 1 more to 2 more chapters. And I'm going to go through and make it, like, beef it up a little bit. Because there are some things that I actually do need to add to it. But I'm going to make it a novella instead of a full 50,000 words. Because I'm way more comfortable with that. And I feel like that not only is best for me as a writer, but it is also, I feel, best for the story. When I was looking at the series outline, I realized that how I had it outlined, I could actually use part 2 as book 2 by looking at that as well, because it solved some of the issues that I was having of connecting to book 2 if I did like the full 50-ish thousand words. And I was like, wow, this helps me. This makes this one thing make more sense to me, the writer. So hopefully it will also make sense to you guys, the reader, because part of it is, I know by the end of Whispers of Tomorrow there's still the question of how did the magic disappear and who controlled the werewolf. And I can actually work better with making a second book with that information because those, like, the thing that took away that was able to absorb the magic actually works better for Whispers of Eternity, because I couldn't really decide the thing that was part of the outline. Essentially, in book 2, I wanted there to be a thing that was like a magical artifact. And I just couldn't decide what this magical artifact was exactly. And then I realized, dummy, you already know what the artifact is. And it's that thing that they can't figure out about in book 1. And just because they might not, who knows, they might find it in book 2, they might not find it in book 2. I'm that person. I don't want to fully spoil that. But there is, like, basically the second half of book 1 was the plot for book 2. And I was like, why don't I just combine them and split book 1 in half? I was also really struggling with writing the second half of book 1 when it was in 2 parts. And I was like, maybe not. So that's kind of how I came to the decision of, you know what, let's do novella. And yeah. So I wanted to share that portion with you of my decision process on that. So obviously that's going to affect my plans for publishing. It actually makes it slightly easier in a sense, because I can actually start working more on making book 1 better, because I essentially have it drafted now, because it was the first half of the book I initially had, and then I'll be able to immediately jump in and go to book 2 on it, or take a break from it and work on Blood Rain or the Matriarch thing. But either way, I'm much more motivated. I don't know what I'm gonna call it, like how to describe it. It's not motivated. Honestly, maybe it's just more happy about how I've decided to change it. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't do this, because like sometimes I like to jump in like feet first into some situations. That's how I got a YouTube channel and a podcast. That's how I started streaming. And I was like, well, the thing is, when I jumped feet first in with like the streaming, I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it. I really do enjoy streaming. It's honestly one of the favorite things, and I don't feel extremely drained afterwards, whereas socializing with people, like, in general, most of the time, is very exhausting. But when I stream, I don't know why, it's a form of socialization, but also it doesn't, like, I don't know. So I was like, that was a good idea, and I'm still not 100% sure that my podcast, but I enjoy that too a little bit, but I'm still not sure what I'm doing with it, and I'm actually, like, trying to come up with more topics I can talk about on there, and this is one of those things that I can talk about here on Cat Chats, and on my YouTube channel, and why not make this part of my podcast, and it also gives me YouTube content as well. So thank you so much for listening to me ramble for a while. This might become more of a regular thing, so my cat thoughts might just become cat chats, and I might just record videos and podcasting stuff at the same time. So episodes will appear randomly, probably. At this time, no consistent schedule, but I hope you enjoy it. And you can follow me on social media at Catlea Writing for updates about my books and other writing things. Me randomly watching documentaries and wondering why the one shark got the music but none of the others did. Seriously, why? But yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.